Hello everyone, I hope you're well. I've just popped upstairs because hubby has just asked me for an anniversary card. It's actually our anniversary on the Saturday, but it's actually his sister-in-law's anniversary and our brother-in-law's anniversary on Friday before ours. So I thought, well, I just want something simple and easy to create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my Elongated Hearts Stencil 156. And what I'm going to do, just to make things a little bit easier, so we're not having things moving around everywhere, I'm going to take some low tack tape that I can't pick the scissors up. Now it's a bit later in the evening, so if my words don't come out properly, that's because my brain's not functioning properly. So I'm going to flick that on there. I'm going to add the low tack tape on the back of the card and just place that on there just so that it doesn't move. It just stays put. Let me make sure that you can see that. There we go. So just so that I can keep that in place. What I'm then going to do is I want this elongated heart, but I only want the elongated heart. The large one. So what I'm going to do is sort of mask off the other area of the stencil, which I'm going to faff and take forever to do. So I need that masking off. So I'm just masking off. You could use bits of card and paper if you want, but I don't want to faff with it all moving all over the place. So I'm going to mask off these areas just so that I can just ink nice and easily and not have to worry about it getting everywhere. So I'm just taking my time just to mask off the actual area that I want. Let's just take, I don't mind a bit of faffing, as long as, you know, I'm enjoying creating. That doesn't really bother me at all. So just twist that a little bit, just so that we hide that one. And then I'm going to have a little sip of tea, which I've got here. I don't like wasting a cup of tea, a good cup of tea. Right, so I've got the elongated heart there, and what I've got is I've got the larger one here. So what I'm going to do is take that out the plastic, and I've got a couple of brushes here, and I want to do a bit of a different colour scheme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use broken china. So let's pick up that ink, and we're just going to pick up a really good layer of ink, just so that I don't have to reapply anymore. I've got a really good layer on there. And then what I'm going to do is, it doesn't matter if I go over this area now, because it's all covered with the washi. And what I'm going to do is just use my brush and sort of slowly build up a little bit of colour. If you notice then, when I was holding it up here, you hardly get any colour. It's very light. If I bring my hand down here, it just gives me a little bit of, because I've got a bit more pressure than on there, it still gives me a wonderful blend, but it gives me a little bit of, I can hold it and I've got more control. So let's just, and what I like to do is I like to build up layers of the colour. So just building up the layer of colour. Okay. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take another stencil, which it does help if I tell you which one. And this is Crisp Tulips 178. Now I can see some colour on there. I just want to make sure that that isn't Distress inks and it is something like alcohol inks. There we go. I just want to make sure that it's not going to come off. This is why it's a good idea just to clean your stencils sometimes. But you can see my stencil, it's got some bits of red and orange on there. So I'm just going to make sure, yes, that's definitely not distressing. So that's absolutely fine. I'm then going to place this stencil over the top of the heart stencil. And what I'm going to do then is use Aged Mahogany Distress Oxide ink. So let me just, this is a new brush. Every now and then I keep treating myself to an extra couple of brushes. So just, so you can see I'm building up that layer. I'm priming the brush to make sure it's got plenty of ink on there. And what I'm going to do is just go over the area with the crisp tulips, and I'm just going to keep blending just over the heart. And you can add a little bit more colour if you wish, just over the heart. Don't be in a rush to lift the stencil, just build up your layers of ink. Let's just place that back. And if we just lift this up, you can see that I've got that underneath, which is just lovely. And what I want to do is I can easily place the stencil back over. I just want to wipe away some of that Distress Oxide ink, and you'll see why. So I just want my stencil to be clean. Now you could literally spritz that with water and then add the heart to another card. So you could quite easily not waste the ink, just add it to another card. Right, let me make sure that stencil is dry, which it isn't. What I'm going to do then is place my stencil back over. You don't have to manoeuvre it if you don't want. You could have left it in place, just so that you weren't, like me, looking for the... There we go. So what I'm going to do then is just grab some low tack tape again, and I'm just going to hold that in place. Just hold the stencil in place. And then what I've got, I don't know what it's like, I've got this Art Extravagance gilding glue, and I think it's by Finnabar. So whatever gilding glue you've got, this one's by Finnabar. Let me just see if I've got a little bit of just any old cut and dry foam. You could use any sponge, anything you want. And what I'm going to do, I don't know whether, I've not opened this, I presume, does it just come out? Yes, it does. So you can't see that, can you? So if I place it here, you can see that I've got that glue just there. Let's just wipe this bit up. So I've got a bit of that glue there, just moving the hair from there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of this glue. And I'm hoping it'll work, that I can just add a bit of this glue just here and there. That's what I'm hoping anyway. Just here and there, and that it will be sticky. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. I've got a different way I can do it, so it's not a problem. So I'm hoping it just gives me a little bit of stickiness. Right, let's just move that out of the way, and I can use this low tack tape again. I'm just going to wipe any of that stickiness away, and hopefully if I give it a few moments to dry, it should be fine. Let's move that out of the way. So let's take all this off. Nobody can, I can't remember which piece went on first, this is the problem. But we'll use all the washes again if we need to. Washes, the low tack tape again. So let's just leave that there just remove this. Here. So I've got lots of pieces of low tack tape I can just use again if I wish. I always take my time when I'm removing low tack tape, it's just me. There you go. It doesn't matter that you've got a little bit outside, that's absolutely fine. Now, what I want to do is, let me lift this up so that you can see. Let me see. You should be able to see, oh yes, you can see there. That's where the stickiness is that I've applied. So, what I'm hoping is, if I, oh yes, it's tacky. Doesn't take much for me to get excited, does it? So I've got some little gold flakes. Little gold flakes. They're not little gold flakes. They're just gold flakes. Don't ask me why I'm calling them little gold flakes. So let's place that there. And I wanted to see if this adhesive worked a little bit easier than the Quickie glue pen, because with the Quickie glue pen it makes it quite precise. Does that make sense? Because you're drawing with a pen, so I wanted it less precise, if that makes sense. So hopefully we've got all the sticky areas covered up. Let's just pull that one out. There we go. So that looks attractive, doesn't it, don't you think? There you go, card done. Doesn't it look lovely? Not. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to use my kitchen roll. You can use a stiff brush if you wish. I'm just using my kitchen roll and a finger. Your fingers are the best tools in my opinion. Let me just move this out of the way. So then the bits, which obviously go everywhere, let's just mop those bits up. And did you know that mopping the bits up is a joke, because all they do is fly everywhere. So I'm just going to tip these little tiny bits away. If you don't want to waste any of the tiny little bits, just place them in your pot. And what I'm going to do, just whilst I can just feel a little bit of tackiness on my stencil, and that will drive me mad, even though I'm going to use it again probably. There we go. I just like to make it clean. I keep picking up bits of things that have got low tack tape on. Right. So what you've got then is you've got the heart with a little bit of the gold on. So what I'm going to do now, if I grab a piece of copier paper, I've got these bits of gold leaf that I didn't want to bin, but I'm going to just take the heart again and just, I could just draw around it really, but I'm just going to apply this ink over. It's just onto copier paper, just so that I can cut it out. You can physically, you know, you don't need the ink. You can physically just draw around it. But sometimes if you've got a wobbly hand, or not that it matters because this is a wobbly heart, but if you've got dexterity problems and you can't draw around the heart, then at least you can just apply the ink. So what I've got is I've got the heart there, and that's just on copier paper. So if we cut that out, I'm cutting on the inside. And just cut that out. I just want the basic shape really. and I don't really want to cut the heart. I don't want the heart to be bigger, so hence I'm just cutting slightly on the inside of the heart, only slightly. And I'm not taking my time, I'm just cutting out roughly from a piece of copier paper. That's it. And what I'm going to do is place this down here, and let me make sure that some of that is all rubbed off. There we go. I'm then going to place this heart as a mask over the top. So we'll place that over the top. And because it's a paper heart, I know what's going to happen. It's going to move all over the place. So let's stop that from doing that. Just apply that onto my hands just to remove some of the tackiness. You could just press it onto your clothes if you wish. So I'm just going to take that and place it on the back of the heart. There we go. And then when I place it on here, there we go. Have you got that right, Tracy? Yeah. So I've then got that on there. So then I'm going to take the heart again. Shall we bring this down a little bit? So let's bring it sort of there. Okay. So what I need to do is I'll use the same low tack tape so that we don't waste it. And we'll press that sort of there. So I'm just going to use all the low tack tape I've used before. So place it on there. Just place that down. I've got different pieces of low tack tape, and of course you never put it back in the same place as you had it before. So just covering up all the areas that are you're going to see. That one, let's cut that in half. So I don't need to use any more low tack tape. So that bit of card is showing, and let's just remove that. There's a little bit showing there, isn't that typical? There's always a little bit that you miss. Let's add that there. There we go. Right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go with exactly the same procedure. So I'm going to use my Broken China Distress Oxide ink, like so. Let's just make sure I haven't got any. There's a bit of card there showing, but I shouldn't touch that. You say that, don't you? And you do know that if I don't cover it up, I will touch it. So let's just cover that bit of card up. I just know what I'm like. So we're just going to go round now, just with our Broken China. Just blending the ink around. Now that's a little bit patchy for me, so I'm just going to blend a little bit more. And just take my time just to blend the colour. Don't be in too much of a rush, just to finish everything. Just blend that. take your time to blend the colour. Still a bit patchy, but I would blend it more if I was just going for that look. But because I'm putting this over the top, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. So what I'm going to do is use that low tack tape to hold it in place, which goes slightly over the top, but that's fine. And then what I'm going to do is, as before, use my aged mahogany. And then we're going to go over the area where the stencil is. So you're double stenciling, you're adding one stencil over another stencil. And if you see that it's not dark enough or rich enough, add a tiny little bit more colour. So is that paper? Yeah. But it doesn't matter how it goes on to the heart, as long as, you know, you've got that in place. Right, I think if I just wipe over the surface very lightly, I should be able to remove the top of the colour. So I'll just add a little bit more depth there. It's not going to matter because I'm going to add some of the gold. So what I'm going to do then is take a little bit more of this glue, just add a little bit more of the glue. I don't really need much, so just take a little bit of that glue. Don't move your non-stick craft sheet. You really need to make sure it's not in blobs. Just make sure that you haven't got big lumps. And it doesn't matter if I've only got little touchies. I can't pick this stencil up at all. That's because I'm picking the wrong one up. Have I got little bits? I don't want both hearts to look exactly the same. So let's move some of this washi low tack tape, whatever you want to call it. Remove some of that. Just get that out of my way. It's everywhere. A little bit of this. Take your time when you're removing the low tack tape. You don't want to rush it. Let's move that gold leaf at the moment. There we go. So then we'll remove our stencil. Then we'll remove the mask. And then you've got the lovely hearts together. Let's move that. I was wondering what that was. I was like, I'm sure there's a piece of low tack tape there. And then let me just, so what I want to do is grab this in exactly the same position it was before, which is, you always sort of, it's funny because sometimes you tilt. Let me just leave that in place a minute. Like so. Sometimes, depending how you've put the stencil on there, what I want to do is just place the stencil back over. Right there. And I'm going to faff for 15 minutes to get it right. There we go. And what I'm going to do is take a little bit more of the broken china. Just add a little bit more. But what I want to do is I want to add a darker edge to the heart. So I'm going to take the aged mahogany. You see, this is where you have to be careful because you get all excited like I'm doing, and then you don't place card underneath the areas that you could hit. So I'm just going to add little bit of just a little bit of shading. It's hilarious because I've got stickiness on the non-stick craft sheet, so I'm just adding a little bit. Let me see if I've got it. Yes, just a little bit of shading. Let's remove this. There we go. Just so that the second heart is a little bit darker than the first heart. I've got stickiness all on there. Right, so we'll just lift this up. Use a pair of scissors. Because remember, I've got that low-tack tape on the back of there. That's why it's not easy to lift up. So what I'm going to do is just clean the stencil, which is the other one. So let's clean this stencil, because you've got that stickiness on there. So you just want to make sure that you just get rid of any of that glue, because you don't want it to ruin the detail that you're going to get with your stencils. There we go. Let's bring this card back in. I have to keep remembering there's low-tack tape at the back of the card. So then I'm going to, there's a little bit there. Do you like how I don't waste any of the adhesive? It's nothing like getting the most out of you. There's a little bit down there. Always put your lid back on, because it just goes everywhere. There's none there, there's none. There's a little bit there. So I'm just layering the gold leaf just on there. Now you can get scoochies, you can get stiff brushes. I'm not going to use any of them. I'm just going to use my finger. And just do it that way. There we go. Let's remove that now, because that is driving me mad. Right, so we've removed that, so I can move the card now. So let's just polish that up. So what I'm doing is I'm polishing the gold leaf up. So I want a little bit of text. So let's grab a little bit of text. And of course I need it to be quite delicate, so I'm going to use my miniatures, which is 756, because I like the delicacy of that text. It's all about nature, so that's perfect. And what I'm going to do is, let's put those gold leaf things straight. So let's take the Distress Oxide. I wonder what colour the Chianti is in. Let's have a look. There's a Chianti in the VersaFine Claire. Let's have a look. No, that's the wrong colour. And that's why you have to test. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Aged Mahogany Distress Oxide ink. And what I'm going to do is just add some stamping. And I think it's probably better if it's off the block, just because I can add stamping exactly where I want it. And I can just be a little bit more conscious of where I'm placing the text. I can take my time. And what I don't want to do is just move away from the hearts too much, because I want the hearts to be the focal imagery. So I don't want to move away from that too much. So like this little cluster of the heart is where I'm keeping most of the text. I'm sort of going down, and it doesn't matter if you get a little bit on the heart as well. Sort of second and third generation, just a little bit of text in the heart. So I'm going to ink a little bit more. You can always tell if I'm enjoying it, because then I ink a little bit more because I'm liking it. That's why. So let's go down there. Add a little bit more to here. I love faffing, especially if I'm making something for somebody. And it sort of has a little bit of an opulent feel. Just let me lift this just to the heart. Just look at that. I think that's lovely. Really looks nice and rich. Right, let's just place that down. There we go. We'll just place that back. So I can actually put that back because I've used it. I don't need any more of that. Make sure my hands are clean, which they rarely are. There we go. And then, let me have a look. On this stamp set, on the Miracle Growth stamp set, which is turning out to be one of my favourites, 995, it's got a lovely sentiment there, which says, make it your moment, which I think is rather lovely. So let's take that, like so. Grab a little bit of card, which is, there's hundreds of pieces of card here, but you can bet I always pick up a piece of card that's about 10 foot long. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take the black ink, my Nocturne ink, just so that the sentiment really stands proud. There we go. Make it your moment. And then, of course, I'm bound to have black ink on there. And then let's add a little bit. I don't want the sentiment too big. There we go. But yeah, that's a nice size, that is. So what I'm going to do is just use a little bit of the ink that's on here, which is the aged mahogany, and I'm just going to go around just with the aged mahogany. And what I'm doing is I'm just blending, and as I blend, some of the ink goes onto the non-stick craft sheet, and what I do is as I'm blending, I pick that back up again. Okay, and because this is for my sister and brother-in-law, you know, I like to make a little bit more effort. So what I'm going to do is, let's hope there's a little bit of stickiness still on this cut and dry foam. Let's see if there is. There might not be, but hopefully, oh yeah, there is. There's a little bit of stickiness on there. I bet I could put that in a little plastic bag and it would keep that stickiness. Gold leaf is so tidy. You can just, so easy to work with, isn't it? Don't you think? What a laugh. It's like if you don't want it on your fingers, it goes on your fingers. Although I'm going to a party on Saturday. Now, I haven't been out for ages, so maybe I should keep the gold leaf on my nails. What do you think? Put some gold leaf on my nails and then I'll look very party-like, won't I? They probably wouldn't think I'd done it on purpose. They'd probably just think I'd been crafting, to be honest. There we go. Look at this. So let's just rub that off so we've got all the excess off. Even for the sentiment, just to make it a little bit more special. It would be nice, you know. So let's just, honestly, I've got it floating everywhere. There we go. There we go. Let's move that. You're going to see gold leaf for goodness knows how long. Let me just go grab which one did you pick up, Tracy? Right, let's grab one of these little clips. Now, these are Tim Holtz little tiny mini, like bulldog clips, but you could just use a paper clip or anything that you like using in your collection. So I'm going to add this little clip just there, like that, so that it says, make it your moment, just like so. And I love the touches of gold. And then finally, of course, I always need one more thing, just one more thing. Let me just put this away. And I always say, oh, it'll only take me 10 minutes. Who am I kidding? 10 minutes. Right. So let me grab one of my other stencils. One of my favourite stencils, which is Undergrowth 162. Oh, Tracy, stop faffing. And just grab that. Put that in the wallet. And I'm going to take a scrap of that card, and I want the little bird facing that way. So I don't want anything too bulky. So we'll go for that middle bird. And then what I'm going to do is use the same colours I've used in the background. So we're going to use that broken china. Doesn't matter now if I go over the stencil, because I'm going to cut the bird out, so that's not a problem at all. I'm then going to take the aged mahogany. Just to add a little bit of aged mahogany. And then I'm going to cut out our little bird. Now, you could add a little bit of text to the bird if you want, you know, like we added text in the background. But in this instance, I think that will detract from the text that's already in the background. You know, the text speaks beautifully, works beautifully in the background. You could bring it into the foreground, but I do like the nice plain one. What are you doing, Tracy? There we go. So I'm leaving a little bit of a white border, just like so. That's it. I might tidy up tomorrow. And then I'm just going to add this little bird here. So we'll give that a little bit of 3D. So it's a little bit 3D. So I'm using a little bit of pin flare. I don't want it covering up my wording, but I want it sort of resting on there, that's fine. But it's got a little bit of dimension. Now, because this card is sort of, because it's got those touches of gold on, and it's a little bit more opulent, as I would say, because it's got the touches of gold on, what I'm going to do is use some gold splatters. So I've got some metallic Poscas. So I'm just going to get the gold one out. There's obviously one, wouldn't you believe it, there's the gold one missing. Oh, do you know? Oh, it's there, that's why. The gold one's here. Put it back in the package afterwards, Tracy. So let's give that a shake. Leave that packaging. And then I'm just going to add, it'll just add a little bit more of the opulence. It'll just add a touch of the gold. Just to the card. That's plenty. You don't need any more. So I'll place that back in its box. And then before we add this to the card, we'll wipe all this up, because the gold does sort of dry quite quick and it sticks to your non-stick craft sheet. So we'll just wipe that up. And whilst we're wiping that up, it gives it time just to dry, because you don't really want to be messing with a card when you can see, let me show you, the gold is very wet, the gold splatters. But look at that. Doesn't it look lovely? So I've cleaned my work surface area. So this was 4.5 by 6.5 inch piece of Pink Frog smooth card, and the card is 5 by 7. Now I'm not going to add a black mat because I want the freshness. I don't want to add that to the card. You could, if you wished, you can just take, she says as she puts it away, you can just take the age mahogany and just wipe the age mahogany just across the edges. It's very subtle, but it works. So just add it across the edges. Don't go too much. Just a little subtle touch across the edges. I'm then going to add that to the 5 by 7 card blank. Now, when you've got a metal piece on there, make sure you add some adhesive to the metal piece, not metal. Bring your card in and then just spend a little bit of time just getting that just right. Just press that on there and then press the little embellishment down just so that that adhesive grabs hold. Just give it a few seconds so that it grabs hold. And then we'll lift that card up for you. We'll just put these Posca pens away because I know what I'm like. And we'll end up putting that Posca pen where it shouldn't go. I've actually got an elastic band over the pens. Right, so let's have a closer look at a card. And I think that's perfect for an anniversary. Make it your moment. It's got lovely touches of gold just on there. Apart, if you wanted to make it totally flat, the bird could be stuck down with no dimension. You could remove the clip and it'd all be one layer and it would go in the post. I'm hand delivering this, so it's not a problem. Absolutely love it. So I hope you'll give that a go. and I look forward to seeing your interpretation. It could be a little card that you're just sending to somebody to say, I'm sending you a hug, or just thinking of you, anything like that. So I look forward to seeing your interpretation. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.